hearing to order. Welcome for those of you that are joining us tonight. Obviously, we would all be rather doing this type of thing in person, but that is just not possible this year. So we're doing our best to make do with what we have. And if you've tuned into any selectmen or committee meetings in this Zoom format, overall, it's been pretty good. There's a good opportunity for people to still ask questions or make comments. We do have a presentation tonight that Ruth will be leading. We also have all the department heads here tonight to help answer questions as they arise, as well as representatives from the planning board and the budget committee and the board of selectmen. If we happen to get a question tonight that we don't have the answer to right here while we're in the meeting, and we think the information is available to us, then we will. I'll be recording questions as we go, and we'll do a little research and post something on the website. You know, like questions from the public hearing or something like that, and follow up with answers as best we can. It's certainly not required, but we do ask that if you do want to ask a question or make a comment, that you turn your camera on. You don't have to leave it on the whole time. You don't have to turn it on at all. It's not a requirement. But we ask that you do. It helps in the recording to kind of know who's speaking. And just like as if we were in an in-person meeting, please state your name and where you live before you ask your question or make your comment. So the presentation tonight, Ruth will start with kind of a high level view, a little bit of process stuff, and then kind of we'll start off with, like we usually do at town meeting, what's the bottom line? You know, if you went with the selectmen's recommendation, we're estimating X, and if you go with the budget committee, we're estimating Y. And those will be presented as we go. After that introduction, then we'll go into article by article, just like we do at town meeting. Ruth will talk about the article a little bit and show the slide and offer context and background. And then after each article, that's when we'll entertain questions or comments on that article, just like if we were in an in-person meeting. And then we're not actually voting on anything tonight, obviously, but then we'll move on to the next article and click through them in order. Sometimes we'll do them as a group and ask because they're kind of miscellaneous articles or deal with multiple topics, but that is how we will go through it. Okay, we should confirm while we're on the air here. I'm going to go around to the department heads and board members and also the committee chairs. When I call your name, just turn your mic on and say something just so we can confirm that we can hear you. All right, Bob, I'm starting with you.
Good evening.
All right, Chief Moore.
Hello.
Calvin.
Hello.
Ruth.
Yep.
George.
Good evening.
Mark Farren.
Good evening.
Rob Ponto.
Here.
Rich George.
Here.
Budget Committee Chair Milt Simon.
Good evening.
Planning Board Chair Ann Torregrossa.
Hi there.
Okay, I feel like we should have like a band or cheerleaders on this. I think I got all the department heads and the folks that are here. Okay, Ruth, I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can share your screen for your presentation and take it from here.
Okay, I am going to share my screen, and oh Lord, here's hoping I'm sharing the right screen. What are you guys seeing? Do you see the slide says Town of Durham Town Meeting referendum? Okay.
Yeah.
I am going to turn off my camera because otherwise I will be completely fixated on myself, and that's not good. If I can. Stop video. Okay. All right. Well, I would like to welcome everybody who is here. As this slide says, this is a public hearing for the Town of Durham Town Meeting Referendum Public Hearing. If you're in the wrong place, you're welcome to stay. I don't know how thrilling it's going to be. There we go. Okay. So first, a couple of housekeeping. Your Zoom screen, if you hover down the bottom of your Zoom screen, you should see this line where it has different options where you can raise your hand. You can also type into the question and answer section, and we will try and keep track of that as best we can. I did get a message in the question and answer already that they can't turn on their video. I think that will change once we give them permission to speak, but we'll have to kind of see how that works. So if you wanted to speak, just raise your virtual hand, we will get to you, or you can type in as a question and answer. All right, so why are we having a secret ballot referendum town meeting this year? So unfortunately, due to COVID, the indoor gatherings that are allowed won't be enough for a typical town meeting. I believe in 2019, wow, that's a long time ago. 2019, we had about 150 people. 2018, we had about 175, and the limit for in-person indoor meetings is at 50. And even if we could meet in person, there are many residents that might not want to come out and be in that situation for some time. And yet we need to continue with our town business, and we need to pass a municipal budget. On the other hand, doing it this way allows for absentee and early voting. Well, early voting is really absentee, but absentee voting. You can request absentee ballots in person here at the town office, or you can call the town office. We do need to speak to the actual person who is the voter if you call. If you come in, you can pick up ballots for an immediate family member. The online request that we had last November is not a possibility because that's a state system, and we don't have access to that for municipal election. So we also are able to have more people participate and vote. We actually have had, as of this morning, 72 absentee ballot requests. All right. So the way it will work is on April 6th at the AMVETS Hall, there will be voting. You'll get an actual ballot like you did last July. We ask that you wear the mask and practice social distancing. We will be there from, well, Becky will be there from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. Absentee ballots, again, are available. They are not available after Thursday, April 1st at 6:30 p.m., which is when the office closes, which gives us enough time to process all the ballots before the election. We did send out a mailer to all of the households in Durham. We can print up extra copies for anybody who did not receive one, and you can pick them up at the town office. We will also have some available at the polls, and it's also available on our town website. We've made a specific page for the referendum, and on the bottom of the specific page, there are actual links to the select board and budget committee meetings, which occurred last January. We did kind of run through those meetings pretty quickly this year because of the deadlines having to do with printing ballots. So as Kevin said, what's the bottom line? What are we looking at this year if everything on the ballot passes? And here it is. So these are estimated tax impacts. And the reason they're estimated is because there are numbers that are included in this that are not known at this time, and they may change. So you can see that in 2020, we had a municipal budget of $3,499,408. And this year, that would be $3,642,822. So there is an increase there. Then there's transferred funds. So what's included in the transferred funds are funds from the capital accounts and also funds from revenue accounts. So we specifically match certain revenue accounts to different budgets. For instance, the telecommunications, well, that's a capital fund. Well, yeah, anyways, sorry. Going offline. Like the telecommunications budget, all of the funds for that budget are transferred from the franchise fees, which is a revenue. And so that has gone down this year. Most of that has gone down because last year we purchased a truck, and all of the funds for the new plow truck came out of capital funds. And so there was an increase of the transferred funds. Then the third line is state sourced deductions. So that includes homestead, Betty exemptions and revenue sharing, which I will touch on a little bit further on. So the assumptions that we're making is the valuation of the town as of April 1st, because April 1st has not happened yet. And it also takes us a couple months in order to process all of the transfers of all of the property and put all of the additions or new buildings into the system in order to calculate our valuation. And then our corresponding reimbursements change according to our valuation. And then also we're making the assumption that the state projection of revenue sharing is accurate. I took the newest one from the state website, but that one was last August. And so it's not a guaranteed figure. It goes up and down with the collections of sales tax and income tax from the state. Tammy, do you see any questions or anything yet? Because I really can't see any of it. All right, so this is what we're looking at. We're looking at a 1.14 increase in the mill rate for the municipal budget, which is an impact to the entire mill rate of 5.7%. Now that's with the select board recommendation. So if the budget committee recommendation was the one that was voted in, then you'd be looking at a mill impact of 1.1 and 5.4% increase in the total mill rate. So then on top of the municipal assessment, you add on the school assessment and the county assessment and what's called an overlay. So the school budget number here is an assumption that what is put forth in their website, on RSU5's website, is what will be passed in June. The town of Durham works on a calendar year and the school works on a fiscal year. So half of the number is already known because it's their 2021 budget and half of the number is not known. So taking those two numbers and doing the figures, it looks like we'll have an increase of 122,593 this year. And then the next section is the county assessment. We actually have received our county assessment this year already. So that is a known number now. And they increased our county assessment by only $335 this year. The overlay is a completely variable number. It is set by the select board when we do commitment. The law allows that you raise up to 5% of your commitment for an overlay, and the overlay is used primarily to pay abatements, tax abatements. The town of Durham's overlay in the past couple of years has been a little over 1%. So we do not, as a rule, put a lot of money into the overlay. So what is driving the increase in the municipal budget this year? The first thing that's driving it is the transition from a town administrator to a town manager. So there's an overlap, and also the town manager is paid more than a town administrator. And so there's an additional $61,000 associated with the transition over to a town manager. There's also a fairly large increase in the solid waste expense due to a contract with Pine Tree Waste. It's a new contract that was started last July. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. There's a restoration of half of the maintenance paving cut from the COVID 2020 budget. So last year when COVID hit, the select board and the budget committee got together and reworked the budget and cut half out of the paving line, the maintenance paving line in the public works budget in order to keep taxes even, despite the fact we did bring on a new bond payment last year. So that's an increase on itself of $130,000, almost $131,000. This year, our workers' compensation insurance increased due to an accident. So it looks back on the last 3 years, and the fees that are associated with it are based off of the number of incidents that you have. So that did increase this year by over $30,000. In 2020, we did not ask for any capital reserves, again, because of the COVID 2020. We were trying to be fiscally responsible, not knowing what the economy was going to do. And so there were no capital reserve requests this year. There are 2 capital reserve requests. One is for $30,000 for fire and one is for $30,000 for public works. Also last year, because of COVID, there was a pay freeze and nobody who's employed with the town of Durham received a raise. This year, there is a 3% raise pool, and that is included in the ballot, and that will also be discussed more. So why is this number an estimate? So there are certain things that are impossible to predict at this point. One is the valuation, which will be measured as of April 1st. Over the last 5 years, we had an increase of valuation of, I think it's over between 1% and 2% every year. And so that is one thing that we won't know until the valuation has gone through. We won't know the final amount of the state reimbursements, and we won't know the final amount of the school budget. So the bottom line commitment is dependent upon all these numbers, which makes it very hard to predict with any certainty. All right, so we are going to get into the questions that are on the ballot. Does anybody have any questions at this point on anything that we've talked about so far? I can't see.
I'm not seeing anything with the stone hands.
You don't see any hands? Is there anything in the question and answer box? No? Okay. All right, we'll keep going. All right, so the first thing you need to understand is that all the questions that are on the ballot are based on the original warrant. But there are 2 questions at the beginning of the original warrant that won't appear on the ballot, and those are just business of the town meeting. It's getting a moderator and then determining what the rules you're going to go by. Oh, no, I take that back. The second one is for the select board and budget committee and the other one, and that will be on a separate ballot in this one. So we're going to go by the article numbers for this, for purposes of this. So Article 3, which will, I know this is going to be a little confusing, but it's going to be question 1 on the ballot, is to appropriate funds for the 2020 solid waste budget overage. So in 2020, we overspent the solid waste budget by $2,091.65. And the reason we overspent it was because we had to estimate the tonnage. So in our previous contract with Pine Tree, we did not pay per ton. And in the new contract, we do pay per ton. And it was based on previous year's tonnage, but unfortunately, partially probably due to the COVID, people were home and throwing out all of their things, we went over the estimated tonnage. And you can see in the chart down in the right that the solid waste we had estimated at 317 tons and we actually collected 381. And the recycling, we were supposed to collect 150, that was the estimate, and the actual collection was 160. And so these funds would be appropriated from the undesignated fund, and they don't affect taxes. Article 4, which will be question 2 on the ballot, is to see if the town will authorize spending up to last year's budget. So if a budget question fails, and legally we required to allow that option on the ballot, then the budget that fails would revert to last year's budget. If this doesn't pass, and if one of the budgets fails, then we would need to vote on a new budget question at a special town meeting, because we wouldn't at that point have a budget in that category. And many of the budgets that are presented this year are equal to or less than last year, and we'll look at them all. So the first ones on the ballot are going to be capital budget requests. There are 3 separate questions. One is for an expenditure for self-contained breathing apparatus. The funds for that are $60,000. That comes out of the capital fund, fire department capital fund, to purchase 10 SCBAs. And that's going to be necessary because the ones that we have are nearing the end of their useful life. And then in addition to that, there are reserve requests for both the fire and public works reserve, capital fund reserve for $30,000 each. And those funds are raised through taxes. Okay, and then we're going to move on to the changes to land use ordinance. There are 4 questions on the ballot that, if passed, would change parts of our land use ordinance, and they are based on roads, home-based business, appeals processes, and then there's a couple of miscellaneous administrative policies that are changed as well. There is a synopsis of all of the changes that are available online. You can also come into the office during regular office hours, and we would have a copy here. There was a public hearing held on this on February 8th, and there is a recording of that public hearing available on our town's website. Okay, so something popped up at the top of my screen. So we do have a question. Okay, so somebody has questions on the changes. Okay, so Tammy, you might have to help me with this. How do Tammy, did you want to speak? Tammy, can you hear me? Because Tammy wants to speak as well. So can you allow Tammy to speak?
I just did that.
Oh, thank you. All right, Kevin, good. All right. So Tammy, you should be able to speak now.
Hear me?
Yes.
Okay, cool. I am specifically, my questions are regarding the road changes.
Could you identify yourself, please? Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yes, I'm Tammy Thatcher from Harmony Acres, which is off of Swamp Road.
Thank you.
And so I'm looking for clarification on what those road changes, on the road changes. So unfortunately, the changes that happened in 2019, I was unaware were happening. I was one of the people who worked very hard to get the family backlot ordinance created. That was apparently they got away with it. They got away with it in 2019. So these road changes could affect my family. So I'm looking for some clarification on that.
George, we have our town planner here. If he can address, is your question about is there something different about what you can do with a road versus what you thought you can do with a road? Is that what your question is? Or is it regarding the number of lots you can have, or?
So right now, kind of, I guess a little bit of everything here. So apparently they got rid of the family backlot ordinance. Is that correct?
No, that's not correct. The land use ordinance was revised in 2019, and the backlot provisions that were in prior to the overhaul of the land use ordinance are the same as they were before 2019. The planning board, in preparation for last year's town meeting, which was canceled because of the COVID, had prepared a set of draft amendments. And those reviewed and recommended by the planning board are what is on the ballot for this go round. And the particular changes that are being proposed for the backlot provisions include limiting the creation of backlots to a single backlot and a single backlot access and a single backlot. And that is a trade-off because right now people can put in a backlot access and then do multiple lots over time. And that creates problems for the public safety. And there have been some issues with the fire chief being concerned about driveways serving multiple lots not really being adequate. So the planning board has recommended that it be limited to a single house on a single backlot. Someone can do more than that in terms of development, but they would have to go through the planning board process where they would look at a lot of issues, including the public safety access. The backlot provisions proposed are similar, but there are some more limitations on them. And there's some more assurances for the public safety that they will be able to access the homes that are built as much as 300 feet back from the road, if you go by the standards.
Okay, so all right, so the family backlot ordinance has not been eliminated.
That's correct.
Currently, what is the width of the road? It's 20 feet, is my understanding.
Yes, and that's the trade-off, is that by limiting it to a single family home on that back lot, the fire department has agreed that it doesn't need to be a 20-foot wide road. It can be a 16-foot gravel driveway. And there will be specific standards that they have to meet in terms of engineering and drainage to make sure that it's going to hold up. And another protection is that before the code officer issues a building permit under the draft amendments, the fire chief, they'd have to build the road and the fire chief has to approve it in terms of him being assured that they can get their vehicles in there.
So before I built, we did have to go to the planning board. Apparently, our land on Swamp Road used to be a subdivision like years and years and years ago. So we did go through the planning board and got that all approved. But my brother, 2 years ago when he went to build, I'm not sure, I think he just went through the town.
Yeah, for a single lot and even for a back lot provision that meets the limitations of the ordinance, there's no planning board process other than the current ordinance. And this is part of what the planning board has asked to really clean up some of these conflicting provisions. So for a multiple lot back lot currently, you don't have to get planning board approval to build it. You just have to get planning board approval of the maintenance agreement. And so this kind of cleans that process all up. So if you're building a road that's going to serve multiple lots, you go through the planning board just like every developer doing a subdivision. If you're just doing a single back lot, the code officer can handle it.
Okay, so it's not eliminating anything.
No.
Okay, then I'm good then. Thank you for clarifying.
You're so welcome.
Okay, are there any other questions? Todd, I had seen your hand up, but it seems to have disappeared. I don't even see you anymore.
He's
Is that
under,
Todd Bollier?
Yeah,
Todd Bollier was involved in the changes that I made.
no, yeah, no, he had a question separately, like on this.
yeah, his name was here, Ruth. I wonder if he dropped off. He might have lost
Okay.
his.
All right, so we also have Jane Rice who wants to ask a question.
Yeah, can you tell me on the town website where I can see the changes that are going to be voted on? Because I'm on there, but I don't find it.
Okay, so if you go onto our town website, let me see.
Mhm.
I'm doing it as I speak to you because,
All right, try the planning board page.
Look for the menu.
well, another way you can get there, Jane, is if you click on home and you're on the home page, On the
Yes.
left-hand side at the top, it says COVID-19 Town Manager Search, and then one down, it says Town Meeting Referendum.
I don't see that, but I'm searching on my phone, so, because
I
I'm
just
on my
put a
iPad.
link in the chat if it's helpful.
Oh, thanks, Ann, yeah.
Man.
Well, I'll try and get something on the left-hand side of the town page, but if you go into the Town Meeting Referendum page, which does have a link on the left hand of the homepage of our Town of Durham website, there is also a link to the land use ordinances there.
Okay, I'm not seeing it, but it may be I'm on my phone trying to search that way. All right, well, that needs to be fixed so that people can see that.
If you have
Please.
problems finding it, Jane, give us a call at the office. We'll be here, obviously not till Thursday now, but we can walk you through it if you can't find it.
Okay, I appreciate that, but for me, that's okay for me, but what about for all the other people that are trying to make an educated decision?
Well, I'll try and make it a little bit more front and center. There are,
It's definitely there. I was looking at it
Yeah.
earlier.
and there's links in the town news ones. So,
If you go to municipal departments and
Yeah.
go to the bottom to planning board and go over, you'll find proposed amendments.
Okay, I'm on municipal departments and
No,
I don't
it's-
see the
sorry.
planning board.
no, it's on boards and committees. He's one
Thank
you.
thing off.
Okay, planning board, got it. All right, so I'm on there. Proposed land use ordinance amendments, is that it?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, all right,
And
thank
there's-
you.
Yeah, there's a whole web page there.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thanks.
I was looking for that too.
Okay, so Jane, you're all set. Does anybody
Yep.
else have any questions on the land use amendments? Not that you can't ask them later, just if anybody has them now, we can.
Oh, Todd's
There's
back.
Todd. Wait, Todd disappeared again. Todd, there you are. Todd, are you there?
Hi,
There you are.
hi, how are
I
you?
don't, I'm good. I don't know why you're the attendee and not a panelist, but go ahead if you have a question.
I can be an attendee, that's all right.
Yeah,
My question is about road classification. What, all these arterial collector, sub-collector, are we gonna take previously accepted roads and designate them as local roads that can't handle any more than 10, 25 dwelling units, thereby negating any development on that road anymore?
Well, I'll answer the question, and you
Yeah,
can
please.
feel free to jump in as well. The subdivision regulations only apply to proposed development. And those road standards only apply to the construction of new roads.
Okay.
So they do not affect existing roads.
So we're not gonna take existing roads and take a traffic survey and decide that they're not up to standards and then
Well,
designate them?
there is an analysis that's done as part of the subdivision review process of whether the
Yeah.
roads that are going to be serving the subdivision have adequate capacity, and or if there are safety issues related to those. So, but those standards that are in the ordinance, the planning board could not deny use of an existing road because it didn't have the specified road base or something like that. It would just simply be those standards apply to new construction of new roads.
Okay, I wanted to make that perfectly clear because it seems to me like it could be used on a accepted road.
Well, it's no different than it is now in terms of the subdivision road standards.
Oh, believe me, I know, George. Yeah. I went through it, I'm sure.
Well,
I know.
what I'm saying is the proposed changes don't affect the approval of subdivisions on existing roads. It only affects the construction of new roads in subdivisions.
So what if, say, somebody wants to put another phase on a development?
Well, the standards that are in the current ordinance are almost identical to the ones that are proposed. What's changing is that under the current provisions of the ordinance, it's still based on that growth cap ordinance that the town repealed. And it said the town would only accept roads outside of the growth district. And so it was the road standards currently are classified according to whether it's going to be a public road or a private road. This changes it to say it should be designed according to how it's going to be used, how many lots are going to be on it. So again, if you compare the standards of the current private road, public road, you'll see that they're virtually the same as local road and minor local road.
Well,
We've added a sub-collector standard in the event that the town sees a much larger development that would carry more traffic. Most towns around, nobody's going to build a collector or an arterial road.
well, the biggest reason I ask is because 3 roads in Durham are named as arterial roads.
Yes, those are state roads.
Yeah. But so that leads me to believe that others could be designated as sub-collector, local, minor local, because it's right there.
That's the intent, is that when somebody's proposing a subdivision, if they have 5 lots, it's going to be a minor local road and they'd have to build to that standard. If it's 15 lots, it's going to be a local road and they have to build to that standard.
Yes, but I'm talking about accepted roads,
Again,
accepted public roads.
the planning board doesn't approve or disapprove existing roads. It only approves or disapproves proposed roads.
Yeah, this ordinance doesn't change anything about whether a road has been accepted by the town as a town road. That at some point, we're gonna have to revisit what is the process for considering accepting a road as a town road. But right now, we actually don't even have a process for doing that because the growth
Voted
ordinance.
down.
Yeah. Right now, there's no change to what is a town road and what isn't a town road.
Yep.
I muted myself again. I don't see any other questions. All right, well, we'll move on, but at the end, if anybody has thought of questions, feel free. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen again. All right. So we got through the changes to land use ordinance. Those are gonna be on it. All right, so did I pass one? Okay, nope. So we're on to fund warrant articles. Sorry. Okay, sorry, got sidetracked for a second. So the town of Durham has many different funds, and some of them have been in existence for many, many years. And some of them are kind of old and redundant or dormant or whatever. So these questions ask to reorganize 3 different funds, and we'll get to the other ones on the next page. But the first one is to discontinue Old Home Days Fund. There's $309 in that, and we have not held an Old Home Days Fund, Old Home Days for many, many years. And so those funds would go into our undesignated fund, and we would no longer have the Old Home Days Fund, which doesn't mean at some point in the future, if the town wanted to start it up again, they could, but at this point, it's kind of old and doesn't really need to be there. The second one asks to consolidate. We have 4 different funds, one called Municipal Building Account, one's called Title Searches, one's called Town Office Reserve. I believe that one was started when the town was discussing renovation of the town office. And one's called Perambulation Funds, which is an interesting fund for walking around the borders of town and determining where those are. So we take all of those 4 funds and we would consolidate them into one fund that's called the Municipal Capital Fund, which would give the town a little bit more of a leeway, and that would be used for capital expenses for any part of the municipality. It doesn't have to be one particular, it doesn't have to be the town office. It doesn't have to be the Eureka. It doesn't have to be any particular building. It could be any municipal capital expense that's in town. And then Article 17, we have two accounts. We have a bridge account and we have a Public Works Capital Fund account. And this question would merge both the bridge account into the Public Works Capital Fund. And then the bridge account or bridges in town would be put into the capital or operating fund of the Public Works and be dealt with that way, not have a separate account. We've had about $98,000 in that account that has been sitting there since I got here about 5 or 6 years ago. And so if we could access that money and put the bridges into the actual capital schedule, I think that might work better. So there's three other questions, and these questions are a little bit more involved. So the practice of the town right now is that any excess funds in the operating accounts, budgets for Public Works and Fire actually roll into their capital reserve funds at the end of the year. And this question, there's actually two questions, one specifically for Public Works and one specifically for Fire Department, would end the practice of rolling those funds in. So that would mean that the operating funds that are left at the end of the year would go into the undesignated fund. And then capital reserve funds would be voted on at town meeting and determined through the capital, sorry, things are going crazy here. Voted on through the capital process. The other article on this one, right now, the town has the practice of any EMS revenue. So when the ambulance goes out and we bill people for, well, Freeport bills people for taking them to the hospital, then those funds go into the capital reserve fund, the Fire Department capital reserve fund at the end of every year. So this would discontinue the practice of doing that. Again, any funds that would be required for the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund would actually be voted on at town meeting and go through the capital process. And then that would free up those funds for any other thing that the town wanted to do with them. So I'm reading my notes. So last year, the Fire Department, last year's kind of a strange year because of everything that was going on. But last year, the Fire Department had 29,000, Public Works had 39,000, and then in their operating funds at the end of the year, which rolled into their capital funds. And then the EMS revenue was about 54,000, and that rolled into the capital reserve fund as well.
Hey,
So
Ruth.
I think I had a couple questions.
Yeah, there was Phyllis, there was a question in the chat from Phyllis Brandon about the Old Home Days Fund.
Yeah.
Saying, does her copy shows 509 in the Old Home Days Fund? Is that correct? Or maybe, do we have a typo on the slide maybe, or?
I'm pretty sure it's 309. I may have done it. Well, okay. I'm trying to do this while sharing. Hold on. Let's see here. Old Home Days Fund. Oh, it is 509. I was incorrect on the slide. I apologize for that.
Okay. And I don't know if you're seeing the chat. Rick Emmons was asking about asking a question. And Rick, you should just hit the raise your hand, Rick, and then we'll, on our end, we press and allow to talk, and then you should be good. And Jane, I see your hand up. Jane Rice, is that a new question or is that from before?
That's new because she put her hand down before.
Okay. All right. It looks like Rick's all set. Jane, go ahead.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess on this, who is proposing that we do this? Where did this information come from that we don't roll it into the capital reserve? We end up bringing it back to undesignated funds.
Yeah, since it's really kind of an offshoot of the new capital improvement process that we put in, a year or two ago. And part of that process is planning capital reserve expenditures, several years out. And because with having the operational funds roll into public reserves, that varies from year to year on how much that is. So it makes it tough to do longer range planning. So the idea is not to contribute less to public reserve funds for either one of these departments. The idea is kind of in accordance with a more normal, appropriate practice, is that unspent funds go back into undesignated, and then they're allocated to reserve funds as the capital improvement plan would dictate. So this is something that the Capital Improvement Committee is very much in favor of, and would like to see.
Okay, so I'm not saying that I'm against that, but I've been around long enough to know that those funds that came from the ambulance, actually us taking that on and billing rather than always asking for help from other towns, that was supposed to be able to pay for the ambulance. We would never have to pay for the ambulance because those things were going to offset it. So that's kind of going back on that. So
Well,
I just think people
collecting the same-
should know the history of that.
We're still collecting the same amount of revenue. It's just a matter of where the revenue goes. So it's an accounting procedure, if you will, to just more appropriately track capital reserve funds.
Okay, well, I mean, I have to say that Chief St. Michel did a fabulous job at trying to, I mean, I think he was the first one in town that actually had a 5-year lookout capital plan. And I think it was really pushed on the other parts of the town to try to get like Public Works to do that, which I think is a great thing. But now it sounds like, I don't know. I mean, if it was a household budget, I'd say it makes sense, but I just don't want to renege on what the town voted on many years ago to bring the ambulance service to our town.
Yeah, this isn't going to change the
Like-
ambulance in any way.
I know that, but it's going to make it, now we're going to have to fight to get the money to be able to keep that going versus because those funds were automatically going in there.
Well, the funds were never, it's just so clarification, the funds from EMS, they were going and are today going into capital reserve, but those funds were not dedicated to pay for EMS services or the cost of EMS. The revenue from the ambulance has never paid fully for that service. It certainly helps, but it is never fully paid for that service. So we have been all along just budgeting and appropriating funds like we do for any other department for that EMS service.
Okay, I'm not saying that I'm against it. I'm just saying that this kind of goes against what was set up in the very beginning when we got that ambulance that was going to never cost us anything.
Yeah, it's
So,
Could I chime in for a second, Kev?
yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
one thing, and then I'll kick to you. It is a change. You're right, Jane, to something that was voted on in the past. That's why we're voting on it now. We're asking the town to make a change, and that's why we have to vote on it. So, Chief?
So just to clarify, because I've done a lot of research and historical digging through here to get my head around this process and how it's done here. But first of all, nothing was ever said about the billing for the ambulance service paying for operational costs for the ambulance. Everything that Chief St. Michel set up in the past that I've found, it was his intent that money would be put away in the capital fund.
Capital reserve.
to-
Correct.
to replace the ambulance itself. It's never been
Correct,
about
and that's-
covering. Okay,
Right. But
It's
that's
never
what I
been-
meant about the ambulance being not a charge to the town. because the ambulance will have to be upgraded at any given time, whatever the plan is.
Right, just the way you were wording that, it came across as this was to fund operational costs, and that's just not how.
No,
Okay.
that was not what I meant. I meant that it was supposed to be funding the capital reserve continuously going on to replenish that ambulance or whatever truck needed to be offset instead of taking it out of tax dollars. So with that said, though, because we are going to end up, this is information that's going out to the public so that we can make an educated decision when we vote. How many people are actually participating tonight?
I think we have right now with attendees and panelists, we have 48
And how many panelists are there?
or 14.
Okay. So we have 34 people that are getting information in order to make their decision on April 6th.
Well, there's 34 people here right now in this public hearing, but again, a mailer was mailed to every house in town. This meeting is being recorded, so somebody may watch it later. But as far as here right now live, it's
Pretty
34
sad.
kids.
Oops, excuse me. Okay, I'm good. Thank you.
I think Jeff Wakeman is next up.
Good evening. This is Jeff Wakeman from Newellbrook Road. And I just want to kind of tail in on what Jane was saying, and especially on the EMS revenue. You were talking, it was 54,000, and I think that's roughly where it's been, up plus or minus a few thousand for each year and so on. So having it go directly into the capital reserve I feel was quite handy. And for what, because you look at it this year, the fire department's asking for $30,000 to go into the capital reserve. You know, it's always like pulling teeth to get the town to put money into capital reserves, because it's not something that's happening this year. We had fights on the town floor over 25,000 going into it. So now you're talking to keep up with things for the fire department, you'd be needing to ask for $85,000 per year, and it's very difficult to get that to pass. And so as time goes on, we would be getting further and further and further behind. I just, especially with the EMS, I don't care for the other two either, discontinuing it, but I'm especially thinking of the EMS revenues stuff. I think that it makes sense that could go towards capital.
Okay, thank you. Neil?
For you.
Did the select board consider the disincentive or incentive factor regarding how the Public Works and Fire Department may be, inclined to try and be more conservative spending money so that their money goes back into their capital fund?
To answer your question, yes. Chief, I'll let you go. He asked about the select board, so but that, yes, those conversations have been had, and you could really frame it up either way. You could frame it up that there's a disincentive to spend all the money if so that you can get it, or to fluff your budget up so that you can get more money into reserves. You could also argue on the other hand that, and if this were adopted, that it might create an incentive that, I better spend every last dollar I get because, operationally, because it's not going to be dedicated to reserves.
Right.
So you could go either way, but I think one thing to keep in mind here is in the past, when these procedures were set up, we didn't have the capital improvement process that we have now. So I think Jeff makes a good point that it's always tougher to ask for more money than less. But the vision is with the documentation coming out of the capital improvement process, that you can see the schedule and you can see how much money in reserves you need in order to be able to fund something 5 or 10 years out. And that if those presentations are made well and people understand it, that we would be successful getting dedicated votes for capital reserve funds. But it may not be that way. I mean, that's a point that people can have an honest disagreement on. But Chief, you wanted to chime in on that as well?
Yes, first of all, I want to reassure everybody that at no point am I designing a budget or tailoring my spending to focus on what I might be able to save at the end of the year, because that goes into account specifically dedicated for me. An operational account is for the operations. If there's leftover, there's leftover, and that's the way that year worked. But that's never my focus. It's never going to be my focus. And I don't believe any of the other department heads operate that way either. I will say, for my own perspective right now, I'm not in favor of either one of these at this point. I know long-term planning, there are other communities that do it that have a more substantial and vetted process. The Capital Improvement Committee has done a great job over the last couple of years starting to develop this process and getting us into using it. But until we have a little bit more information specifically for the fire department with the evaluation requests that I put out and information like that, I think it's a bit premature to close out this type of plan and move to simply an undesignated fund. Thank you.
There was a question in the question and answer as to whether Calvin and Chief supported this. And so we've gotten Chief's answer. So Calvin, do you support rolling the public works operating funds in or stopping that?
I am fine either way. I think that as Jeff Wakeman said, it may be harder to get people to commit to raising that more money, but I understand the other side of the coin, that people's perception might be that we're tailoring our spending to accommodate our capital funds. So I'm fine either way.
Jill has her hand up. Jill, you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. This is Jill Gaston-Gay on Stackpole Road. My question is, why are we electing to try and merge these funds into undesignated? And the reason why I ask that question is twofold. One, we're then going to have to down the road vote to move it from undesignated into capital reserve or capital improvement. And two, being on the budget committee, Ruth has done a really good job at teaching us that the undesignated funds needs to be held at a pretty good balance in order to help us with loan interest rates and things like that for the town. So I'm a little concerned that these funds are going to now be used more towards that goal instead of being easily transferred into capital reserve. We're asking for money to be transferred into capital improvement down the road if we do this, versus right now, the money's already there.
You want to take that, Kevin, or you want me to?
Go ahead.
So one of the issues that we've run into, Jill, is that now that we have the capital plan in place, and this came into effect really last fall, when we go through the process of determining what the reserve maybe should be, we're trying to take into account what might be left over in operating expenses. So you come to the end of the year, I don't really know whether it's going to be 5,000 or whether it's going to be $50,000 at the end of the year, and that's going to be transferred in. So say we need to put $100,000 into the capital fund in order to be able to afford a fire truck in 5 years. And we want to put away $100,000 every year in order to afford this fire truck. But I don't know at the end of the year whether in the operating fund there's going to be 5,000 or 50,000. And here I am trying to figure out with our capital planning how much money we should put into reserves and put on the ballot and stuff. So what this does is it makes it to it's more of a thoughtful and it's like thinking to yourself, okay, well, we don't have to worry about that money. We need $100,000. This is what should be on the ballot, and we don't have to take into account this. So that money would roll into the undesignated fund, and then in a really direct and thoughtful way, you would determine how much money really should be in your capital reserve account. And that's the theory behind it.
So are you saying that the money would never be transferred from undesignated into capital fund, that we're just quote unquote forgetting about it, not worrying about that amount?
Well, the time, it wouldn't be specifically that amount that would be transferred. So what would be on the ballot in the following year would be a specific amount, the $100,000. So so say you had $50,000 left over in your operating fund. That number would never appear again. Okay, it would just go into the undesignated fund, and then in kind of a separate process, we would determine how much money needs to go in the capital fund, regardless of what was left over in the operating fund. Does that kind of make sense, Jill?
You still haven't answered my question. Do you plan on transferring funds from undesignated into capital funds?
Only through town meeting vote.
So I think we're going to run into that fine line of people trying to dip too far into undesignated to avoid raising taxes.
Well, yeah, and it might, I think I know where you're going with that question now. It could be a mix. Like, for instance, if $20,000, say, rolls from fire operational into in the future, if this passed, undesignated, but let's say the warrant article, as Ruth was, the example she was using, was going to be 100, we might ask for 100, but we might say, 20,000 to be appropriated out of undesignated, but the other 80 to be raised via taxation. So it's not a it's not to say that every time we want to put a capital reserve question on the warrant that it would be coming out of undesignated. Some of it may, or it might, in some years it might be worded to all be raised. It just depends on what's going on that year. Does that answer your question?
It does, but I think a better compromise or at least another consideration would be in the sense of how we look at our car registration. That gets transferred into the administrative fund. So I think if we looked at it more as this is automatically being transferred into the capital improvement fund, it's not designated fire, it's not designated public works. I think that would alleviate some people's worries that, hey, we fought really hard to make sure this money went towards capital reserve, and now it's just going into undesignated.
Jane,
You have a question?
Jane has her hand up.
Okay, so currently what happens is the money that is left over in the budget goes to the capital reserve in that particular department, say the fire department, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that the same in public works or no?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So I know in years past, it has been very hard when the fire chief had a 5-year rolling plan, and he would tell us like what apparatus was gonna, be at its end and we needed to replace. And I'm probably one of the biggest ones that votes against it just because. And so having that capital reserve money kind of float over to that, kind of offset that, just what you're saying, without having to vote, where if it goes to undesignated, I don't understand why you would have a solid number in undesignated versus whether it just floated over to capital reserve, what the time frame is there, because right now you could say I need 100,000 minus whatever flows over.
But you don't know what's going to flow over until after.
But then how do you know it's going to flow over from undesignated funds? You wouldn't be able to vote the way Kevin's saying, like sometimes when you're on the budget committee, you decide, all right, we need this much money. We're going to take 20,000 from undesignated and we'll raise 30. So, and always being thoughtful that you never want that undesignated to go below a certain amount. That was always in the thought process.
Yeah.
So
Jane, the timing's a little different on that. So in the fall, the way this works now is the capital improvement committee goes through and they determine, well, they don't really determine, they look at the reserve requests and rank them, determining how much is going to be needed for the reserve request. But the determination of whether the funds come from the undesignated fund or or taxes would not be made until January or February during the budget meetings. And so we would know by that point how much of the funds from the operating budget had not been spent.
right. But I mean, that's what we're doing now. When you're on the budget committee, you're making those decisions to say we're taking this much from undesignated and we're raising this much. But if it's already in their capital and they need 100,000, but there's 57 in there, you just need the difference. So I don't know why that number is unattainable at the time they're doing the budget versus when the budget committee is saying, okay, we have this much in undesignated funds. Does that not get determined until the town meeting?
Well, the reserve amount that's requested. So say for instance, I want, and don't quote me on this, anybody. I want to put a brand new addition on this town office, and it's going to cost $100,000, and I want to do it next year. So I want to
It's gonna
save
cost a hell of a
$50,000.
lot more than 100,000.
Yeah, well,
Sorry.
I'm running in round numbers.
Yeah.
So I need to put $50,000 in reserve this year, and I have to put 50,000, well, and then $50,000 next year. So
Correct.
say, I don't know, say my operating funds, excess operating funds get put in. So I don't know now this year whether or not I'm going to have $5,000 or $30,000 worth of operating funds. So I don't know whether I have to ask for $45,000 or $20,000 for my reserve for this year, because I want to take full $50,000, but I don't know how much is going to roll over. And so now this fall I have to ask for a certain amount of money, but I don't know how much money I have to ask for. And I won't know that much money, how much money I need to ask for until the CIP process has ended.
Which is when?
Which is in November or December.
But before the time.
That's before the budget committee and the select board do their work determining what to put on the warrant for budget.
Okay.
So I don't know how much to ask for. So I asked for $50,000 and they approve the $50,000, and then I roll over, I don't know, $50,000. That's not going to happen. But so now I have $100,000, which I guess is great, but it's not within my planning. I don't know. I don't know how to. I don't think.
So couldn't it be just worded that you would like to have $50,000 minus whatever rolls over from your budget to the capital reserve?
I mean, I guess you could.
That could be a pretty substantial amount, though, from year to year, just with my own operations, let alone what Calvin looks at. That could be a huge difference depending on what we're looking at actually purchasing in the following year.
There's no question.
Right, but if you're on a 5-year rolling plan, you already know what you want to purchase. I mean, you know what truck is coming up. So what's the difference if it's just a matter of timing?
But truthfully,
when that's
capital expenditures are more than just trucks, though. In the
Okay.
long term, with the plan that they're looking at, if we're looking at anything, of a significant cost, multiple thermal imaging cameras, new radios, in addition to the station, repairs to apparatus, different, there are multiple things that come into that capital line that need to be considered that sometimes don't fit into that rolling 5-year plan.
I didn't know that repairs went into the capital line.
Well, that was an example, but something unforeseen that comes up. It's a vehicle that needs a repair or needs an upgrade that isn't covered under our regular maintenance budget. That that money would have to come from somewhere.
All right, so I'd like to there's a couple more hands up.
Okay.
Jeff Wakeman is next.
Oh, wait a second, I have to ask him to unmute. Okay.
I'm just, again, along the same line as Jane, but I think we're making it a lot more complicated. Yeah, when you go through the capital improvement plan stuff and so on, you know how much you need. When you get to putting out for the town, asking for the money and so on, you'd already know how much would have lapsed over into your capital right then, just like you'd know how much lapsed into your undesignated fund. So it's kind of the same thing either way. I think we're making it. You're not trying to guess how much you're going to have out of next year's budget left over. When you go through the budget process, you already know how much was left, had lapsed.
Okay, and thank you, Jeff. Jill, again.
One question I did want to clarify, are we continuing to keep a municipal capital fund, a fire department capital fund, and a public works capital fund? We're
Yes.
not talking about merging those. We're just talking about where unspent money is going to go, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Michelle, I'm sorry, I'm your last name. Weeblen?
Michelle, yeah, there you go.
Hi, this is Michelle Weiblen. I wanted to thank Jane for her questions because I'm trying to become more involved locally and trying to understand how all these processes work. And this has been really helpful. My question is in regard to some of these changes and how this is going to apply to the town manager. Will these changes make their job to allocate or make decisions easier by reconfiguring things in this way?
I think Jeff makes a good point. I mean, it can be managed either way, quite honestly. This it does streamline things a bit, and you can be a little bit more deliberative in your planning if the funds don't automatically roll into those accounts, but it can be managed either way. I don't think a town manager would find it overly burdensome one way or the other. Some of the other earlier accounts, though, that Ruth was talking about, like the old home days and some of those dormant accounts, there would definitely be a benefit into cleaning those up and consolidating those and having like one municipal buildings capital improvement account versus bits and pieces of 3 or 4 accounts that we have now.
And just a quick follow-up, the amount that was posted for the old home days, for example, would it be helpful to have amounts for these other accounts also listed? And will those be available to see what the rollovers will be if these changes are happening and it just automatically goes into that other what I'm asking?
No, I think I know what you're talking about. So on the mailer, I know that the different accounts that would be consolidated into a municipal capital account were specified. And I know I specified on the Public Works one where the bridge account, the 98,000 goes into the Public Works account on the mailer. I don't think it appears on the ballot.
Yeah, the old home days would on the mailer says that 509 lapses into undesignated. But I think in every other case it's being consolidated into another dedicated account.
Yes, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? We have something in the chat.
So the question is, doesn't the article state that any capital purchase will be voted on by the town? So wouldn't that mean that we would transfer the funds necessary? So what has to be voted on by the town is to put money into the capital reserves. And on the rollover from Public Works and Fire Department that happens now, the town voted on that in the past to have that happen. So that happens according to that vote. If additional monies get put in or to be put into capital reserve, that has to be voted on by the town as well. And there are 2 questions on the ballot this year that do that. It's not required that voters vote on spending the capital reserves. We customarily do that and we'll continue to do that. But there are cases where if it's not a major expense and it's something like maybe a repair to, Eureka Center or we got a grant and we need to take $10,000 out of capital for our matching piece of it to replace a culvert, the board can just vote to spend capital reserve money out of the capital reserve account because the town has already voted to put that money in. And as long as it's used for that purpose, then it doesn't require a town-wide vote. However, it's always been the custom, and as long as I'm around, will continue to be the custom as far as I'm concerned. When we have something like, a truck or, a big capital expense, then we will ask the town to actually vote on those things.
Heather had put in the chat, she wanted us to make it clear that because of the way we're doing town meeting this year, none of these questions will change because of this meeting. On the town floor, generally, you can amend warrant articles on the floor, up or down. That won't be the case. It's either an up or down vote, or in a couple cases, as we'll get to in a couple minutes, it'll be the select board recommendation, the budget committee recommendation, or neither recommendation. So back to my sharing screen.
Okay.
Hold on, takes me a second. All right, so we've got through that one. So then after the fund articles come the budget articles. So these are the articles that actually set the budget for 2021. And decreasing or flat from last year, budgets are assessing, general assistance, cemeteries, planning, the Eureka Community Center, our debt service, and the conservation recreation budget. Increases from last year are in administrative, a little bit in animal control, fire department, public works, solid waste, and the telecommunications budget, which is also a small increase. So the select board and the budget committee, the recommendations that were voted on in their meetings in January will be printed on the ballot. All of their recommendations agree, except for in 3 departments. And those departments are the fire department, telecommunications, and planning. So Article 18, which, not to confuse you too much, but is going to be question 16 on the ballot, is for the fire department. And here you can see what the 2020 budget was, what the actual amount spent was. And then in 2021, the select board recommendation that will appear on the ballot is 485,000. And the budget committee recommendation is the same as last year, which is the 472,753. Because of the workers' comp increase, 17,657 of that is allocated to the fire department. So that is an expense that chief cannot control, and is set to his to increase his budget. So here, some of the comments that the budget committee had made, and they are here to represent themselves as well, was that the labor line had been underspent for several years, and the select board recommendation kind of sees that the 2020 actual for the payroll was an outlier due to the pandemic. If you factor in or out the workers' comp increase, the department's budget for the select board will be 5,410 less than last year. And then with the budget committee, it would be 17,657, which is the amount of the workers' comp than last year. Are there any questions on this one before we go on? Actually, I think I saw Joe Lamont's hand up.
Joe Lamont, Stackpole Road. I apologize. It was the previous article that I had a question about.
Okay.
Trying to get it before you went in depth with this one.
Okay.
The animal control contract that we have, is that still with Lisbon currently?
It is.
Is that going to continue that way? And is there a copy of that contract publicly?
If you wanted to see it, you're welcome to ask me for it. I can get it to you.
Is that more or less of an expense than having our own?
It's a little bit more, but we several years ago we contracted with Lisbon, and then 5 or 6 years ago we tried to go on our own.
I went through about 4 of them.
Yeah, it's really difficult, and service was terrible. I mean, you would see stuff on the Facebook pages all the time about animals running all over the place, and so yeah, it's probably a little bit more. It's more than we were paying when we had our own, but when we had our own, we weren't really getting any service. So so this is where it's and the service by all accounts has been excellent under this contract. So that's where we are.
All right, thank you.
Jill?
So I guess I have to disagree with this slide. The budget committee is not recommending $17,657 less than last year. We're actually recommending that the budget stays the same as what the fire department requested last year, which is actually more than what they spent. And I understand last year, is a unique year because of COVID. But the $472,753 is also less than what they spent, or is also $22,000 more than what they spent in 2019.
Yeah, the wording of that third bullet is, it's not saying that they're getting that much less in their budget. It's saying that they'll have, in both the case of the selectmen and the budget committee, that's how much less money they will have to spend on operations. So it's kind of like, in our own budget, if our cost of oil goes up, but our income hasn't gone up, then I have that much less money to spend on everything else. And that's what that is saying, is that because of the increase in workers' comp, that's eating up a bigger piece of the pie, if you will. So there's less money left over to do all the other operational stuff. So that's the point that's being made there. All right.
But I do just want to point out that you know, in what the budget committee did is they looked at how much has actually been spent year to year. And felt that we were still giving the fire department more. We gave them even more than the $17,657.
Any other comments on this one?
I guess if I could chime in there, I appreciate what once again, as I said in my public post, I appreciate what the budget committee was looking at. The issue that I had to deal with, that I presented to both the select board and the budget committee, in the 2 years prior to this, I've instituted some operational changes that did decrease some of our labor spending. And I was hoping to have in 2020, I was hoping would be a year to kind of prove operationally that those had taken hold, and that we could possibly put less into those lines, except for the fact that suspending 4 months of trainings and meetings, as I posted, that cut 1,100 man hours in the year out of the budget. And looking at what my average pay is per member, that's $17,000 right there that wouldn't have been spent, simply because we weren't doing trainings and meetings. So when I presented the budget for this coming year, as I said, I had presented a flat budget right until I had spoke with Ruth, and we got the workman's comp forecast, and that's $17,000 on top of a flat budget that I can't eat otherwise. I would be sure that we'd have an overrun. And like I said, I understand what the budget committee is trying to do in looking at that. I just don't think trying to come off such an outlier of a year that we can do that, as we do get back to, once again, as I alluded to in my post, we're back to, we've been doing normal operations since August of last year. We're just breaking it up as much as we can for the requirements in dealing with COVID.
And there's a question from Heather Roy in the question section. And Ruth, this might be more for you. Does workman's comp in the public sector work the same as in the private sector? Is it audited on an annual or tri-annual basis? Is it based on payroll?
It is based on payroll. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure how it works in the private sector. But in the public sector, they base it off of the last 3 years experience. You get an experience rating depending on how many claims that you have. It's based on an estimation of payroll, which I do every single year. And then the following spring, usually about February, we do get audited, and they reimburse us if they charge us too much, and they charge us if they charge us too little, based on what we actually paid on payroll. Usually I'm within a plus or minus $5,000 for the workers' comp. So we're pretty close generally, but they do audit us every year, and they do reimburse us or charge us more depending on what our payroll was.
Okay, thank you, Ruth.
All right, go back to sharing. Okay, so we're done with the fire department for now. Moving on to Public Works. So again, last year we cut in half the maintenance paving line in the operating budget of Public Works. We were looking to cut a significant out of the budget after COVID hit, and that was really the only place where a significant amount of money could be cut out to compensate for the added road bond, which we knew was going to come, but then COVID hit and kind of messed everything up. So this year we reinstated the level up to 75% of the pre-pandemic level for the maintenance paving line. They have a workers' comp increase of $12,284, and then if you compare it to the 2019 actual spent, this budget is a decrease of $45,000 from what we actually spent in 2019. Does anybody have any questions on the Public Works budget? See anything, Kevin?
Not yet.
Okay, moving on. Well, I can always go back. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, no, I think we can come back to it if we get one.
Yes. So the next one is the administration budget, and that's my budget. This year it is an 11% increase over last year, and that's due to a transition from the town administrator to the town manager. Some of that expense was offset this year by decreases in election expenses because obviously last year was a very expensive election year, and certain benefits also decreased. Any questions on what's included in the administrative budget? Somebody keeps texting me.
Not seeing anything, Ruth.
Oh, Joe Lamont has raised his hand again.
Oh.
No, I think that's from before. Sorry, I don't think I'm paying close enough attention to my phone.
I'm not seeing any hands or anything. Oh.
Okay.
Deborah, what is the actual cost for town manager? We don't know that yet. I think the estimate we had in the presentation was somewhere around, an $80,000 per year salary plus benefits. Some of the transition costs here, it's really two components. One is when we hire a town manager, if it's not our current town administrator, then we would have an overlap for a month or so of those two positions, so we'll be paying them both. And then there's if it's not our town administrator, then there's a severance package built into that for a couple of months of pay and benefits, if that's how this turns out. So I think we said the estimated, I'm going off memory here, so forgive me if I don't get it quite right, but I believe we said the estimated, once everything is up and running, additional annual expense versus for town manager versus town administrator was around, I want to say around $35,000, somewhere in that ballpark.
Any other questions? Jean raised her hand.
Yep. Sorry, go ahead. Try again, Jean.
Oh, did I work? Yep.
Here we go.
So quick question. The town manager,
Please identify yourself because all we see is your first name.
I'm sorry, Jeannie Costigan. Sorry. The town manager is the salary, was that a suggestion from the scouting group that we used, or is that based on comparable town management salaries
Yep.
near us?
It's based on it's based on comparable town managers in similar sized towns. But we will, and one of the things our consultant has been telling us is that, we will have to factor in the part of the state that we're in a little bit. And he told us just last week that it is a pretty competitive market out there right now. There are a fair number of positions open around the state, and there's competition for candidates. So it's possible that we could be looking at a bit more than the 80,000, but we don't know what that is yet. We're so far with where we are with the town manager search is that we received about 40 applications for the position. The consultant sent us like the top 15 applicants from the pool. The board members have reviewed those. We reviewed them separately and each came up with our top 6. Then we got together and compared notes and determined who we wanted to invite for the first round of interviews. And those interviews will take place this week and next week. And coming out of that, we should have 2 or 3 finalists to then move on to the second round of interviews. So until we get to who the candidate is and what the offer looks like it needs to be, we don't have a concrete number on that yet.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else, Kevin? I can't see.
No, that's it.
Okay, onward. So the next question is going to be on, oh, we got another question in the question and answer thing. So they want to know the mill rate or the overall budget percent. Can we go back to workers' comp? This is a substantial increase if we are audited annually, where a significant amount of claims filed to increase the rating substantially, or was it a payroll increase that led to much of an increase? It was the claims that made the increase so drastic. This year we had, well, in 2019, we had a fairly significant claim, and that just came into our rating this year. And so that created a pretty large increase in our experience mod. We can, at the end, I think we can go back to the mill rate slide and take a look at that again. And I think that covers that for now. Okay, back to solid waste. One of my favorite, oh, Kevin, can you read the questions? Go ahead.
Need from the question, there's nothing, it's just Heather saying thank you. We're good.
Oh, okay. So in 2020, again, we entered into a brand new contract with Pine Tree Casella. We did go out for RFP. We got 2 quotes, 2 bids. Casella was the lower bid, but they structured the bid differently than we have had in the past, in that there's a base fee, and then we are charged per ton of waste. There was a significant increase from the last budget to this budget because over the last 3 years or so, there's been a collapse in the worldwide recyclables market, which has affected costs quite a bit. And so this is the first year that we're feeling the additional costs totally for an entire year. We have adjusted the tonnage because of the increase in tonnage that we felt the end of last year. And so there is a significant 21.24% increase, which translates to about $54,000, a little more than that. So are there any questions on this one? Okay.
Seen any.
So this is an outline of our debt service. We have three municipal bond bank, 2 are road bond only, the 216 and the 218. And the third one, the 219, is the road bond ambulance combination. We also have a fire truck bond outstanding, and we have the original bonds for the equipment and building for the public works that are still outstanding as well. So if you add all of those up, so last year it was $991,693. You'll notice that's a couple dollars off, and that's because of rounding. In this year, we're looking at $980,863. It's a slightly lower figure, and the reason that that's slightly lower is because every year the amount that we owe in interest to the municipal bond bank decreases slightly, and so it decreases the payment. So does anybody have any questions about the debt service? Okay, I'm running on. So Article 23, which again, for confusing purposes, it's going to be question 21 on the ballot, consolidates a number of different budgets: the animal control, assessing, cemeteries, our conservation, parks and rec, Eureka Community Center, and general assistance. Last year was the first year we had, entire year we had with Lisbon as animal control. And they're kind of adjusting the fee according to their expenses. And so this year it did go up significantly, well, somewhat significantly in percentage wise. Dollar wise, you're looking, I don't know, about $1,500 increase Assessing went down a little bit. Cemeteries stayed the same. Conservation and parks went down a little bit. That budget is paid for completely out of a designated fund, so that no taxes are raised for the conservation, parks and rec line. The Eureka Community Center went down a touch as we figured out what it was going to cost for the heat pumps in regard to electricity versus propane, which is what we used to heat the Eureka Community Center with. And then general assistance, we did decrease general assistance. We consistently don't have a ton of general assistance requests. And even if we did, we could overspend that budget line. In fact, we're required to. Any questions on that one? Okay. Article 24, question 22 is going to be for an employee raise pool. So this amount of money, the $12,363, represents an overall increase in salaries for the town employees of 3%. Last year, there were no raises given. We froze all of the pay due to the pandemic. And then these funds are raised, and then they are distributed between 6 departments. And the pay rates are set by the select board, and raises are based off of performance. And so some people can get less than 3 or more than 3, depending on the performance of the individual employee. Any questions, Kevin?
Not seeing any.
All right. All right. Article 25, telecommunications. So this again is an article that is funded solely by a dedicated revenue stream, which is franchise fees. Last year we had budgeted for $55,000 and our actual was $43,500. This year, the select board recommendation and the budget committee recommendation are different. One's $55,767 and one's $50,000. The select board, some of the expenses that are going to be increased this year is going to be email. We had the email breach last year, and we are transitioning our emails over to a .gov. And so we need to pay for the transition and the IT that goes along with that. This budget does include IT, which is the people who help us with all of our technology. And it's very hard to determine from year to year how much you're going to need that, because obviously if you have a big issue like a hacking or something fails, then you need a lot more work from the IT company. And if you don't, then you don't. So any of the funds that are not spent at the end of this year in this budget do revert back into the revenue stream. So the difference between the budget and the actual last year, those funds have gone back into the franchise fee fund. And then the budget committee was concerned, and I understand their concern, that we have consistently budgeted more than the finance fees every year, franchise fees. And so at some point, if we pay the entire amount of the budget, we will run out of the funds from the franchise fees. So that's the difference between the 55. We did bring in about 43,000 in franchise fees last year. As a rule, that's about what we get per year at this point. We have a contract from 2016 that will expire in 2026, and it still remains to be seen whether or not any municipalities are going to be able to collect this type of fund after that. Any questions on this one or comments from anybody?
Not seeing anything.
Okay. Onward. All right, so the next one is for the Planning Board, Appeals Board, and the Historic District Commission. There is a mistake on the mailing. It's not on the ballot, but it is on the mailing. On the mailing, I have the funding source as everything being raised. But we do have 2 funding sources for this budget, and one is conditional use revenue and the other is appeals revenue. It's not a ton, but it does offset this budget a little bit. So the difference between the select board recommendation and the budget committee recommendation reflects that the difference in, well, that there's still a lot of work to be done to allow the town ordinances with state requirements in the Durham Comprehensive Plan. And so the select board funded this work totally in the budget that was requested. And then the budget committee wanted to have more information as to the projects that are actually going on. And so their budget increased 2% over last year's actual budget. Both of these recommendations are less than last year's budget. I don't know if that kind of got a little crazy, but any questions on that one? Nope. Okay. This is a difficult one. Article 27, which will be question 25, is something called LD1. So in 2005, the legislature passed what is now referred to as LD1, and it was an act to increase the state share of education costs and reduce government spending at all levels. And basically what it's supposed to do is it limits the tax increase that any town can place on its residents unless the legislative body votes to increase the levy limit. If all of the budget articles pass this year, the town will exceed the LD1 levy limit by $380,331. In 2020, because we decreased the budget, we didn't have to vote on LD1 because the budget in 2020 was less than in 2019. Hold on a second. I gotta look up my numbers here. Yeah, so that's basically the gist of the LD one. If it, go ahead. I hear somebody.
I think somebody's mic was just on, but nobody's raised their hand or anything.
Okay. This is a question that generally is on the warrant every year at town meeting. It requires a written vote in any case at town meeting and has passed with substantial difference over the last, I don't know, 5 or 6, 10 years, however long we've been doing this.
Since 2005.
2005. Well, I can only think back as long as I've been here. So if anybody has any questions on this.
Not seeing any.
Then at the end of the ballot, there are a number of articles that are actual business articles. What they do is they set the due dates for the taxes, the interest, and they allow for the overlay. There's nothing new on these questions. They give the select board an authority to conduct the business for the town and continue operations until the following town meeting next year, which hopefully will be in person. And then they also allow the town to borrow money if we run out of cash in the short term. So on the 6th of April, there will be the election. Again, practicing social distancing and wearing a mask. We will be, well, again, Becky will be at the AMVets Hall from 8 to 8. Absentee ballots are available. If you have any questions, just call the office. We can answer most of your questions. And we have a page on the website that outlines this and has links to the budget meetings which were held last January. So you can watch those thrilling meetings if you're so inclined. So now we can handle any questions. I will work towards, I don't know how to do this exactly. I got to back up.
Yeah, go back to the question or recap the kind of all in.
Yeah, I'm not very good at this. Okay, there we go. How do I make it a big
Presentation.
front slide? How'd that come out?
Good.
Okay. So we've backed up to the estimated tax impact of all in. So the municipal assessment, which is this municipal budget that we're discussing today, you can see in 2020, it was the amount of the budget minus the funds that are gotten elsewhere, transferred or state sourced income. The amount raised in taxes in 2020 for the municipal budget was $1,276 and $1,276,895. And in 2021, we would be raising $1,684,746. Now, this is an estimate, and so that number could go up or down. It generally goes down a little bit every year. Then the school assessment, which includes half of the budget, which has already been passed from the 2021 school year, and half of the budget, which will be passed in June from the 21-22 school budget, which we don't have an exact figure on yet. The county assessment is an exact figure. Again, we do have the county assessment, and they did raise the assessment for Durham only by $335 this year. And then the overlay is a completely variable amount that the select board sets when we commit taxes. It's allowed to be 5%. Traditionally, it's been between 1% and 2% over the years. And those funds are there to pay for any abatements that the town receives. So I am at the end of my presentation. If anybody has questions for any of us, now's the time to ask.
We do have one question in the question and answer box. And the question is, are there any residents that submitted nomination papers to serve on any board/committees that we will be voting on? The answer to that is yes. I believe, Ruth, check me if I get any of these wrong. Yep. I believe that there's one open select board seat, and I believe Rich George is running unopposed for that.
Yes.
And on the school committee, similar story, one seat open. Candy DeSipkis is running for re-election unopposed, I believe. And on the budget committee, there are 3 open slots like there are every year. But I believe only 2 turned in nomination papers, Neil Berry and Lee Fisher. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
So there'd be an open write-in possibility for the budget committee. And write-ins for the others too, but if people want, but that's who's turned in nomination papers.
All righty. Anything in the chat? Nope.
Nope. I think.
Oh, wait, another question? Oh, just a thank you.
Just a thank you.
So does anybody have any more questions? Okay.
So absentee voting is available now if you're interested, and you can absentee vote in person as well during normal town office hours. And if you think of a question later and meant to ask it, certainly reach out to a board member or the town office, and we will do our best to get an answer for you. Other than that, I will consider this public hearing closed and wish everyone a pleasant rest of your evening.
Night, everybody.
Ruth, nice job.